All right. So we oh, I'm on the 5 minute. I was like, wait, what fucking chart am I on? Cool. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to do the weekly outlook first, and then we will dive into some Q and A. So when I'm looking at kind of levels that I think we could be at least approaching, just looking at this, like I don't want to be Captain Obvious, but I think one level we definitely could be moving towards, first and foremost, is going to be this right here, right? If that doesn't provide a displacement, I get these aren't exactly equal, but if this doesn't give any kind of upside, right, I think the next stop is going to be down here. Okay, I kind of am leaning a little more towards that. In terms of like reference points, we don't really have a ton on the 1 or the 4 hour. On the 1 hour, we just formed this fair value gap with the closing of the last bit. But I wouldn't really put too much emphasis on necessarily where exactly I'm expecting us to move back down from. It's more or less just seeing how we open up with the week. We've got a really small fair value gap down there or up there, and a bunch of equal highs up here. So overall, though, with NQ, I'm just looking at this mainly. Look at the way we reacted to this fair value gap, right? We're just not getting the kind of force that I would want to see up either. Like throughout this whole move, if we're looking at kind of the energy of this move, it just kind of seemed like, at first I was looking for us to go higher, but it just seems, we didn't really get displacement through any of these levels over here. And it almost looks as if like the market maker model was more of this daily fair value gap, and then a 1 hour market maker model. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. Up into this point. Now, this still can change. If we see any kind of really rapid up movement, even from here or here, then I could see a little bit more of a likelihood to go higher. So really, again, it's just a reaction to this, which is going to give me the rest of the bias, right? So if we come down here and displace through it and create more fair value gaps, we'd look to trade lower. If we come under it, though, the main thing I'll just be watching is what is the market structure like under it. And if we start to get really energetic pushes, creating fair value gaps, I'll look to trade that order flow higher. So that's the game plan for NQ. Looking at ES, ES has got a ton of fucking lows right here. I mean, I would be extremely surprised if that doesn't get tagged into. We hit our last target that we talked about, which was over here. I didn't really watch ES too much of the week, but look how we got that reaction to it. So that's kind of what I see with ES. I mean, I could be wrong here, but it's it looks at least obvious to me, right? We took out these lows. I think we'll trade back up into this or even maybe a little higher. Is there anything in the 4 hour? It's a little 4 hour fair value gap right here. But overall, I see us trading lower into all these lows, right? So this would be the draw on liquidity for ES. Now, under these levels, right? Under those levels, we could definitely see some kind of, stuff getting bought up, so to speak. We could see some kind of bullish reaction. Brain wasn't working there for a minute. We've still got some untapped fair value gaps right here. On the daily, I think it's all within a fair value gap. So interested to see how we react to these levels. That'll tell us a lot about what we need to see moving forward. Because the way I look at stuff, as many of you guys know, and if you're new, you'll know this pretty quickly, I'm always looking at, okay, if we're bullish, how should we be reacting to certain levels? If we're in a bullish market still and we come into a discount under all these equal lows, I want to see the market, if anything, consolidate or immediately reverse. I don't want to see us keep displacing down. If we start displacing down even further, the only other point that I see kind of for a reaction would be way down here, right? That's the only other point that I see where I'm like, okay, but even then, I think that if we start making it down into these areas, I would be less confident because we have all of these imbalances right here that we should. I look at a combination of liquidity sweep and coming under all these levels. I want to see a reaction from that. So overall, for both indexes, or indices, I should say, for ES and NQ, I would be looking for short-term downside. Once we reach key levels that we are targeting, I would want to reassess the situation, see market structure and order flow, see what side of the market is kind of taking control. Do we get accepted under these levels, or do we start pushing away and getting bought up? That's the game plan for indexes. So if we want to get a bias on YM, we can. I usually don't really get too much into buying or trying to do too much analysis here, just because I don't really trade the Dow. But when I'm looking at this chart, I mean, we've got inside this fair value gap. We've also got a fair value gap down here. I would almost look more so towards this. I could be wrong, just based off of the analysis of everything else. Yeah, this would be one I would be watching. If we're gonna trade lower, I want to see us trade off that manipulation block, right? So I would be watching this as like kind of like the main target for short-term target for YM. If we trade into that, I want to see immediate bearish reactions down under this consolidation down here. I just look at it like this fair value gap right here has had a lot of chances to create more order flow. So look right here. We traded into this, and then what happens? We got a big push up, but it immediately just gets shot down. So that tells me the market's not really ready yet. That's the way my mind looks at it. And also this looks like a pretty nasty market maker sell model. If we're looking at, this right here, this looks like another distribution. So usually when you get a retracement to an optimal trade entry of that distribution, that's where you'll start to, and look, it's right there. That's usually where you'll start to see downside if you even make it that far. So I would expect that daily fair value gap down here for YM. For the dollar, I was looking at this actually the other night. I still think overall it's reaching higher. It's just this kind of ranges we're forming, because I could see this, right? I also see this down here. So this is where I see most of the liquidity forming on the dollar. You also have this right here, but the 4 hour isn't super clear. I mean, the only thing I can see is short-term bearishness on this 4 hour, just because we inverted that gap, right? If I can get my tool to work. So I would say you're likely to trade, into that low, but under that, that's kind of what I want to see, okay. What happens next, right? So really, I would say under this, right? If we make it under this, I would be watching order flow there, okay? And if we're bearish under this, then I would look for this. If we're bullish under this, I would look for this. So notice how this pattern, what I'm doing. I'm just looking at the market and saying, okay, here's the obvious points if we are going to be bullish. Here's the obvious points if we are going to be bearish. Like, where would we draw towards? Then along the way, I'm looking at structure and order flow to kind of tell me what side of the market's in control. What are we reaching for? And once you establish that, it's as simple as just looking for entry models intra-week. And, this is the dollar, so you're not going to be likely trading it directly, but that's the same logic applies nonetheless. Euro hit our target last week and reacted pretty nice off of it. But it's similar to the dollar, in the sense that we don't really have like a ton of room to work with here. I would be watching this with Euro. So notice how we're kind of in this consolidation phase, right? Market's just kind of consolidating. If we go to a higher time frame, order flow is getting disrespected on both sides. So in this kind of market, I personally would be more range trading. If I was trading Forex, I would be looking at if the market got above that, or really, you could look below here or below here, right? So I'd be looking at these areas. Like if the market reaches these, I would probably be waiting until the market did reach one of these, just because I don't look at this like, if I just look at the 1 hour, we can say, okay, well, we've got a fair value gap, cool, 5-minute shift, maybe. This is where we get into that territory where you start taking shittier trades, in my opinion, because you're just forcing yourself to find something. When I would look at this, I would want to see something swept out and then watch for a reaction. And I wouldn't even look to trade all the way to the other side. I would just look to trade to get good enough risk to reward and kind of chip away at the block, so to speak. Because until the dollar's clear, I don't expect the euro to be clear either. So it's same kind of story with the dollar, right? If anything, I would probably bet on it moving up into this, and then you could watch for any kind of SMT with the pound or SMT with the dollar, and then maybe look to trade down lower into this range. Or vice versa, it goes down here. Again, I'm not super confident on either side. I would just be waiting for one of them to get hit. With pound, interesting. I mean, if you are to go higher, like above any of these highs right here, let's look on a daily. I don't think, there's nothing on a daily. It's very clean. And again, this is kind of like whenever I get into this consolidating, because I look at this, like, okay, if the market was super bearish right now, like I would have wanted this to create a new low. And the fact that it doesn't tells me that this market's likely to be a little bit more choppy, right? It's waiting for something. The market, it's not moving from IRL to ERL like you would like, right? Because we came up into that area, and what happens, right? Like if you watch this fair value gap right here, right? That's your, for marking out this range, let me move it on premium discount. It came into premium, right? So you want to see displacement out of this. Now, does this look like a bunch of displacement? Not really. It looks like shit, in my opinion. This is not like very clear. Like, yeah, you can be like, oh, well, there's a fair value gap there. I mean, yes, and there's trades from it, but like the market isn't really pushing down, right? It didn't really push down. So when that happens, I almost expect this to get swept out, right? Because it's like failing to do its job. But even after, and now whenever we get up there, that's when we would reassess and say, okay, is the market going to do this? Is it going to do that? Is that the previous week's high? No, it's not. Nowhere near it. So yeah, I would almost expect it to trade a little higher, the pound. I would expect it to trade up higher into either one of these highs. It's not really my ideal kind of market conditions though here. Like I don't like this. Personally, but I would say you're likely to trade up into that. Taking a look at gold, this shit it's been all over the place. Like I thought it was gonna trade down to these lows some time ago. It's kind of similar, and again, gold's gonna be relying on the dollar, similar to currencies. Like we're getting this, the market. I would say here you create a new order flow, right? You came into this fair value gap, created another fair value gap down. Then when you come into here, it's like it got inverted, kind of indecisive. Not super, super clear. I mean, it almost looks like it wants to go higher looking at that 1 hour chart. I mean, if I were a gold trader, I would be playing it pretty conservative. I would look for this high up here. But after that, I mean, it's like, shit, you got a nasty ass fair value gap, right? There's a lot of a high chance that the market's gonna react from that. So this is what I would do with gold. I would look to trade up higher. Now, if we come up here and come above and you get any displacement down, boom, I would just be selling the shit out of that down. But I would be waiting for this to confirm that. So this is kind of the target I would look for on gold. Sorry, excuse me. On Bitcoin, we're building this pretty tight consolidation right here. With this one, this isn't a time where I want to be like actively like trading crypto a bunch. If I look at this though, I'm kind of just looking at this consolidation we're forming, right? You could even look down here, but I think usually with Bitcoin, it's almost like that very big push that creates that bottom. I usually don't pay attention to that as much because if you wait for that, by the time that gets hit, usually you're already moving that direction. So I would be watching these areas right here, right? Leaning, I want to be leaning bullish, but it's like, I mean, if we come above this, let me put it this way. I would be waiting. I want to see displacement above this range. Like I want to see us move very aggressively outside of this range and almost kind of like disregard this fair value gap. If we start to do that, I would say sure, then we have a good chance to start moving to the upside. But until then, I just think it's going to be a chop fest. Ethereum, when I look at Ethereum overall, it looks a lot better. I think on the higher time frames, like the weekly unicorn, we've got a breaker, fair value gap. 4 hour, 4 hour hasn't really given me necessarily what I want yet, but it's leaning to the bullish side. I do like Ethereum better than I like Bitcoin at the moment. Overall, though, like when I'm looking at this chart, I mean, again, it's the same thing. Like I don't look at this like, wow, I'm super confident in either direction for like intraday trading, which I know most of you guys aren't doing, but I'm kind of just going top down here. I would be just waiting for more displacement to the upside. But if you start to get really clear, undeniable upwards movement, I think Ethereum makes a run to new all-time highs. And I'm leaning towards that anyways. But just until that happens, I can't really be like, yeah, it's commencing now, so to speak. But, you know, we look here, okay, what happened after we hit into that daily fair value gap? Well, it's displacing down. So it almost looks like it wants to come down and sweep out a little bit, right? So we'll see. But I would be just watching reactions. If I had to pick areas, it'd be these two. But notice how when we've gone on this list, most of us are trading index futures. So I see more clarity on index futures than I do other markets personally. I see a lot of, you know, if-thens with the dollar and currencies and gold and crypto. It's like, okay, well, I want to see this happen before I'm really, you know, watching for anything. I mean, overall, you do have directional bias, but it's like there's just a lot of conjumbled up price action. So let's take a look at the news this week. Why is it showing euro? I don't know why I did that. Maybe I did that to help somebody. Okay. We've got a lot of news this week, so we should get some move. We can pull up euro. Speaking of the pound to see if there's not a lot for currencies. I mean, some for euro actually, but your USD will still give the vol. Oh wait, it's Parliament. Didn't that guy just basically do away with the Parliament? I thought in France, like he just vetoed something about that. I can't remember. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff, including NFP this week. So we'll see what kind of table gets set for us moving forward. Overall, to kind of recap, ES, I would be looking under this low. If we get bullish price action under that, would be starting to look for buys. If we get further displacement, further bearish price action, I would just keep selling until proving otherwise. NQ, if we don't get pretty rapid displacement of the upside under there, I would look for this low. If we do get rapid up displacement, I would just look for buys. YM, I would look for this to see what kind of reaction it yields. If we get bearish reaction there, I would just look for all of this down here to get taken out. Dollar, I would look for this. Reaction under that kind of yields where I want to go next. Euro, I would just be waiting until one of these points get taken out. After you come to one of those points, I would be looking on the lower time frames during the kill zone to try to trade lower if you're up above here, or trade higher if you're up above here. But I would be waiting for either of those. The pound, I would lean bullish on the pound. The reason I'm a little bit more confident on this is just because of the lack of, you know, this right here. Not really much happening. And if anything, it looks like the lows are getting manipulated more, right? We're popping under lows here, moving up. Popping under lows, getting bought up. But even then, I wouldn't be extremely confident on this. And I don't want to be Captain Obvious and tell you, you know, if you trade lower, you're likely to hit the lows. I mean, it doesn't really take a genius to tell you that. Gold, I would be short-term bullish into this, would be waiting to see how you react into this massive fucking fair value gap. If you get a bearish reaction out of that, sell-a-thon. Crypto, I'd be waiting to see for displacement coming out of the range. And displacement, I mean higher time frames really pushing out. Ideally, this daily fair value gap getting inverted and 4 hour bullish structure. Because even until then, like I would just, if you must trade crypto, like, okay, well, we inverted this fair value gap, traded higher. Yeah, sure. But I would just be looking to trade like each kind of leg in price. Let's just say if you were traded in here, I would just be looking to trade up higher into that same, because like if you look, so we had ERL right here, IRL, the trade already happened. The trade dipped down into that and then immediately popped back up. So like that would be the little trades I would be personally scalping inside this range. I lean more. I like Ethereum's higher time frame more. That being said, I still think it's going to be the same as Bitcoin. I want to see how we're reacting to these ranges, see how the market responds to hitting some of these key levels.